For a decade, people have bullied 5e by calling the monsters bags of hit points. People have rightfully pointed out that Pathfinder 2e's best theory makes monsters more fun to run, or that using 4e monsters tends to be a huge improvement, or that MCDM's Flea Mortals blends those two design principles into 5e with their expanded monster manual. It seems like WotC has heard the feedback, 5e picked itself up off the floor, brushed off the dirt, and stole all the good features from other monster manuals. And oh my god, did it work. The monsters in here are so much fun. They look fun to run too. But there's this through line of, sloppiness around the whole thing. Like, just how rushed was this thing? How rough was the process on the team? Because so much love went into this book. If you're willing to let me psychotically flip between adoration and frustration, follow along as I tell you why this monster manual disappointed me more than a little bit. I think they delivered an incredible product, but I feel like I got promised a better one. Welcome to Mystic Arts, where we make our reviews a month later than everyone else and refuse to apologize for it. My name is Daði. I'm a professional writer and director, and I've been DMing for over 10 years. There's a new monster manual. It's the last of the 3 core rulebooks for this second edition of 5th edition. The 2024 Monster Manual, released in 2025, has an expanded library of monsters, a new approach to design, legendary actions, and balance. It's got spectacular art, layout, and a fun approach to monster design inspired by their competitors. After the result of a poll a while back asking users if they'd buy a book just for the art, it seems like the answer was a clear yes. Because oh my god, the art in here is gorgeous. Unparalleled. My girlfriend AB did a 2-hour video just talking about the art, specifically ranking the sexiness of all the characters, but we could have spent another 6 hours just gushing over each illustration. Almost every picture you see, not you, Pitfiend, is a fully rendered scene where the monster is shown doing what they do in the environment they belong in. It's so inviting and makes me excited to run these monsters in those same scenarios doing those same things. The layout is fantastic too. Each monster has a subheader describing it in a handful of words so that newbies can figure out what a monster is about, and reminding veteran DMs about the core themes of monsters they've already run before. It's so flavorful. I loved seeing that. Each monster has a listed habitat and suggested loot you can then roll in the Dungeon Master's Guide. The stat blocks in general have been cleaned up and are a little more legible. They've done away with that yellow tinted faux papyrus look for a cleaner, more elegant design. I'm a big fan. The whole pitch is spectacular. And there's several indexes at the back meant to help DMs use this book as their primary source of information. To associate monsters with CR and environments, it's awesome. Oh, and before I get any further, have you all noticed Wilhelm? He's a recurring character in this book and shows up to die in a freeze frame every time a big monster is doing its thing. The first thing you'll notice in the new monster manual is the fact that the stat blocks are laid out a little differently. I wouldn't call it a major change, but it's an overall improvement, I think. The yellow parchment look is gone for a higher contrast lettering on those off-white boxes. That's a move 5e has been making for ages. I remember reading Volo's and Xanathar's Guide back in the day, being surprised that the white pages, compared to the PHB's yellow pages. But I like it. The white feels more official somehow. Throughout this video, we'll compare stat blocks between 5th edition editions and see what the differences are. Let's start by comparing the 2 goblin stat blocks between 514 and 524. It looks like they buffed the goblin, something I didn't expect, to be honest. The goblin has 3 more hit points, 10 compared to 7, deals an additional 2 damage on average when it has advantage, which they should be able to get fairly easily with their nimble escape feature. Unexpected, but very flavorful. It sends a clear message to me. Make your goblins hide more. Use the bonus action. Good, got it. Especially when you compare hide actions between editions, you just need a DC 15 check and you're hidden. Goblins have +6 stealth, so they're more likely than not to succeed. That's scary, honestly. Let's look more closely at the 2 versions of nimble escape. If I had to pick one example to explain the differences between the 2 editions, it's this. In 2014, it says Nimble Escape. The goblin can take the disengage or hide action as a bonus action on each of its turns. In 2024, listed under bonus actions, it says Nimble Escape. The goblin takes the disengage or hide action. Clearer, shorter, and no less flavorful. A good edit. I think small changes like this will make it easier to run at the table. Moving our gaze over to the stat array and saving throws, you'll notice the save is just after the modifier. I think that's a good change, but it'll take me several games to get used to looking at that layout before it becomes muscle memory. One thing I notice is that the AC just says 15 instead of listing the equipment behind the AC. I like that, honestly. A lot of the time it used to just say natural armor and then whatever number the designers wanted anyway. This isn't very different. The designers can make the character reach that AC by any method they want. Like I said, most monsters have natural armor anyway, which is just a number they pulled out of thin air. But then, under a new section of the stat block, it says gear and then lists what you get when you loot the goblin. It says leather armor and shield. What's confusing is that goblins have a ranged weapon, a short bow, that they cannot use while holding a shield. So presumably they have to unequip the shield while holding the bow. Are DMs expected to remember which goblins have their bows out and which don't? Or are they expected to just have AC 15 and not elaborate on why? I mean, like I said, the number can be anything. It could get to whatever it says through numerous ways. I'm okay with the answer just being, they just have 15 AC. But I want to believe in this world. So I need to believe that the goblin holds the shield, even while holding the bow? I don't know, this just seems messy. Mind you, this is an issue in both editions, but in 2014, at least they printed exactly how you got AC 15. I think the fix here is to just remove the shield from the gear and refuse to elaborate on exactly how they get to 15 AC. I'll just tell myself they get an added +2 from a hidden feature called Goblin Trickery or something, and then I'll move on. They could have just cut the shield, I don't know. Seems like an oversight. Which brings me to another point. The new edition, especially noticeable in the Monster Manual, feels very clean. I don't know how else to describe it. Not just polished, but like the quirky fun stuff has been shaved away. There used to be a bunch of weird mechanics in this game when it was first released 50 years ago. Too many weird mechanics, in fact. It was famously unplayable. And over the last 50 years, we've trended away from that kind of jank, and broadly, I think that's good. I like clarity. But at the same time, I like odd little mechanics that stretch the imagination. I like my spheres of annihilation being instant death, like they were in the old days. I like the Intellect Devourers roll 3d6 against intelligence and maybe kill the players. It's so wacky, but it's fun. In 5R, the Intellect Devourer no longer rolls 3d6 against the target's intelligence. It just does damage, and it can only steal bodies from creatures with 10 hit points or fewer. I think this design is cleaner and more mature, better for new DMs, but I'll also miss rolling 3d6 against intellect. It made the Intellect Devourer unique. Nothing else in the game did that. It used to make barbarians quake in their boots. Now, they tank Intellect Devourers just like they tank everything else. The wizard used to be safe, but isn't anymore. It's especially odd since Shadows draining strength was unique, which, mind you, they still do. So why were the Intellect Devourers robbed? Feels like an odd choice. I might still run the old Intellect Devourer. But in the same vein, they changed the Faerie Dragon's Euphoria Breath, which was busted in the 2014 rules, but this new one is a lot more reasonable. It doesn't include the odd mechanics of rolling for whether or not you get to roll a save. Now it just incapacitates you for a single round of combat. I assume this overpolish is done to help with getting new players into the game. Cleaner means easier to understand, but a lot of the reasons why I like this game are the various weird little oddities and exceptions. There's such a thing as too clunky, but variety is the spice of life, and I think the more we trend towards this kind of hyper-polished version of D&D, the more we risk the monsters are just HP soaks that hit you back kind of D&D fights. They've done a lot of push against that feeling, but I don't know, it feels a bit odd to me. The Knight had its leadership feature removed, which kind of sucks because it used to be a unique feature. Now they just soak attacks and dish damage, like everything else. I like the extra radiant damage on the Knight. I think it helps it reach that CR3 threshold, but I will really miss the leadership feature. It used to be fun to center squads around a Knight, but that's less interesting now. Less interesting in counter combos. It seems to me like the old 2014 distinction between defensive CR and offensive CR, and then averages out to stat blocks as definitive CR is gone. Basically, stat blocks that used to be tanks were given more damage capabilities, and stat blocks that used to be glass cannons were given more defensive capabilities. I think it's a wholesale change to the CR system, and I think it's going to make it way more reliable. I've already run a few encounters with the new encounter math, and boy did they make the monsters tougher. Going off of my first few encounters, this might have been the CR fix that many people wanted. I really like what I'm seeing so far, but it's too early to tell. Okay, back to the Goblin. Like I said, it was buffed. They talk a big game about balance changes across the board to the entire Monster Manual, and they sure did do that. While reading this massive tome, I was routinely surprised by how often I saw fairly major balance changes. And I found most of them exciting. I remember they're saying there was a small debuff on lower CR creatures, a buff on mid CR, and a huge buff to high CR creatures, and all that was needed. I mostly see them buffing low CR creatures though. The zombie got a lot fewer hit points now, but mostly stayed the same. According to the people playing this game, there's just too many low CR fights ending in TPKs, and at late levels, players aren't challenged. How well that was managed won't be clear to us for a year or more in all likelihood, because they buffed the early levels for player characters, so to combat power creep, they're buffing monsters too, I guess. Like, I follow the logic, but we'll just have to wait and see how it shakes out. It's too early to tell how this whole balance change is going to work out. Because the Kobold got buffed too, sort of. It's got more hit points, 7 compared to 5, more AC, 14 compared to 12, but it also lost its sling attack, which was my favorite part of the stat block. Honestly, the Kobolds got a little screwed. I love Kobolds, they're my favorite monster. But while the Goblin got 2 new stat blocks from the Monster Manual, the Kobold only got 2 stat blocks for it total. The Kobold and the Winged Kobold. But the Dragon Shield exists in Monsters of the Multiverse, and my favorite tactic of sending in a Dragon Shield to tank, while the back rank peppers the party with sling attacks at range, using their pack tactics, isn't viable rules as written anymore. Not just because I'd have to use the old Dragon Shield, which I'm obviously going to do, but because I'd have to homebrew the sling back into the game, which I'll do too. Come on, couldn't it just be in here? Give me one more little dragon dude. I would have loved a bunch, but at least one more, please. From the Kobold to the Tarrasque, yeah, this is a buff. Not a colossal one, mind you, but there's some changes, all good. It's got resistance to all bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing. It's gotten a thunderous bellow, which can attack objects at far range, and it can move a lot as a legendary action. Partly because some of the changes to legendary actions, which I'll get to in a minute, but also because it has more speed. So if you're at 300 foot range, the Tarrasque would get into shouting range from you in less than a turn, and then it'll blast you with its thunderous bellow. I however think the damage numbers probably just aren't enough. It should be doing way more AoE and way more single target damage to properly challenge 20th level heroes. At least based off of my experience of 2 different 5e campaigns that spent some 40 sessions total in the 17th level or higher range. The Tarrasque is not enough for a solo boss monster. The new dragons, however, are awesome. This is the Ancient Black Dragon, and it's great. Huge initiative bonus, innate spellcasting, and it's finally got some exciting legendary actions. Not just a special legendary action called Detect for having a good look around. Taking a legendary look around the room. Ugh. The Claw Bite is now just Rend, which I think is an improvement. I'll miss the sentiment of a dragon's bite being stronger than its claws, but I won't miss the dice confusion at the table of which pool of dice I was supposed to throw at that time. And now, the Rend attacks can be replaced with a 4th level Melf's Acid Arrow, so it's got reliable range. It's odd that they can typically only replace 1 attack with the Acid Arrow. I don't know if I'd stick to that design if I ran it, but maybe I would to make sure that the dragon does go into melee. For some of the dragons, they're a little disappointing. The White Dragon's 2nd level Ice Knife feels boring. Overall, the legendary creatures seem to do way more damage too. I don't just mean high CR creatures do more damage, but creatures that have the legendary abilities are specifically more deadly at the same CR than creatures who aren't legendary. Mathematically, at least. The new legendary actions, by the way, are a bit interesting. They removed the old cost 2 actions style of design, where certain legendary actions cost more actions. Now, each legendary action just costs 1 action. But some actions end with a sentence that reads, "The dragon can't take this action again until the start of its next turn." Hey, fantastic. This makes it way likelier for DMs to use the fun legendary actions, because we all know the best use of an action is usually just to hit the bad guys. The only odd thing about this design is the choice to make it be a whole sentence. Almost every change between 2014 and 2024 is to condense long sentences into some kind of notation. Couldn't this just say once per round? Like in the title, like the once per day abilities? Seems like an oversight. I also saw some folks online lamenting that they had trimmed the ecology and habitat and physical description sections down to a single section that consists of a couple of paragraphs per monster. But I personally won't miss those sections, because I didn't read them. Honestly, they were so long and needlessly wordy, I never really bothered. Like, on occasion, I'd go delving into them, but mostly I'd just look at the art and decide that I knew what this monster was about. But also, in the new edition, the images are so much more evocative than any long-winded text could be. I don't need mountains of words telling me about the green dragon habitats. I've got this one art piece that shows me. I don't need words to describe to me which parts of a griffin is lion and which parts is eagle. I got eyes. I could see the picture of the griffin right here. The pictures are worth 1,000 words. By the way, in the marketing for this book, they spoke a lot about advice for DMs on how to run monsters in the most lethal way possible, or tactically optimal. And for anyone expecting some kind of the monsters know type of advice, that's not in here. I don't know what they were talking about because I can't seem to find anything close to that. There is this one sidebar at the start that spends about 120 words saying, get good. If tactical advice was a major motivator for you to buy this book, don't bother. It's not even 150 words. There's a handful of new CR20 plus boss monsters, especially for categories that were missing those kinds of creatures in the basic rules. There's a blob of annihilation, archhag, colossus. It's awesome. And the monsters seem to be a little more action-oriented, to quote the goat. They've got fun bonus actions, reactions, legendary actions. The monsters all look fun to run. And the ones I've run so far have been way more fun to run. As far as I can tell, it is clearly inspired by Flea Mortals and the Pathfinder 2e bestiary, which is great news. One thing this book does is increase the design asymmetry between the game the players are playing and the game the DM is playing. And it does this across the board. And it's good. What's design asymmetry? It's the difference between rules that apply to the DM and the rules that apply to the player. The DMs don't need to pick feats, deal with huge equipment, or futz around with consumable magic items. Players don't have to manage legendary actions, group initiative, or recharge dice. And now this has been taken a step further. DMs don't need to worry about spell slots, but instead just spell uses per day, much like in Mordenkainen Presents Monsters of the Multiverse. For those of us who played one of the many third editions, we know the pain of seeing stat blocks trying to bend over backwards to prove that the DM is allowed to run the monster by raw. How come this orc has so many hit points? Oh, thank the gods, it has the toughness feat. That makes sense, then carry on. 5th edition doesn't revisit these ideas when they published the core rulebooks in 2014, and when they published the Monster Manual today, they increased that distance between player options and monster options. It's been very visible online with the fact that orcs were cut from the Monster Manual. And if you're on a steady diet of the outrage mill, you might have been told to be really angry about that. But listen, I don't want elves or dwarves in here. I don't want a stat block for human in here. So it makes sense to me that the orc is gone. It's going to anger some people, but I'm not one of them. I won't miss them too much. Orcs have been player characters in my games for a long time already, and I'm happy to lean even further into that going forward. But this design asymmetry goes beyond that. I was running the new guard the other day, and I discovered that they removed the explainer on the AC. They also removed a lot of text on how the spear works. They don't need to tell me that guards can technically hold the spear with 2 hands, since it's a versatile weapon, and therefore do an average of 1 extra damage per attack at the cost of 2 AC. That's just too damn granular for a DM to worry about while running the game and running lots of stat blocks. So the damage just says 1d6. And by the way, all this very online fury about the orcs fails to mention that they cut the drow, since the drow are in the player's handbook too. I'll miss the drow, but mostly because I thought those stat blocks were really flavorful. But I've got the old book, so I guess I can use that going forward. They cut the lizard folk warrior. The only lizard folk in here are the elementals, CR2 and 4. The flavor text at the top says that lizard folks are humanoids, so I guess also use the NPC stat blocks for lizard folk? But there is a basic Aarakocra called the Aarakocra Skirmisher, but the lizard folk just has Scout listed as a suggested replacement, which is kind of a nerf. This one does bum me out. I loved the old lizard folk stat block. And since they're replacing a lot of the basic monster stat blocks with NPCs, I would have really liked a table with suggested changes to make each stat block feel like their respective species. For orcs, add this feature. For dwarves, add this feature. Just to help illustrate to new DMs that they're allowed to play around with all these things, and help veterans spice things up, since we are all about to become very familiar with those handfuls of NPC stat blocks. Like, they added a few, but not enough. And the duergar are all gone. They're not in the PHB and not in the Monster Manual, except in the conversion table. Are they just gone in 5.5? If you like the flavor of the guy that grows big and is invisible, that's cut, except the ones in Monsters of the Multiverse. Which, by the way, that sort of expanded rule stuff in Monsters of the Multiverse, is that going to get reprinted a 3rd time? Or will they just not reprint the duergar and drow? I'm a little miffed about that, honestly. Also, how come drow got to be in the PHB and not duergar? Will the duergar be nowhere? I understand there's a lot of uncomfortable conversation around those charcoal-skinned, all-evil species, and for good reason. Many previous depictions were troublesome, but I'd rather see them try to approach those topics in a mature way by consultation with marginalized people? Can we create some canonically good duergar? Like a duergar version of Drist and Jarl Axel? Or even a whole society of them? And then we understand that the ones in Gracklstuck are bad for reasons that have nothing to do with their species. At least in some way that a whole bunch of gameplay isn't removed from the game. Is that a hot take? I don't know. I may be about to appeal to a bunch of anti-woke jackasses here, and that is not my intention. I don't understand why WotC has decided that the path to inclusivity is best trodden by cutting out stuff. I like inclusivity, and I like stuff. Can we have both? They could just introduce a smidge of moral complexity and let me still punch my players with a great dwarf in a brutalist mech suit. I found out later, by the way, in one of the videos about the Monster Manual, they've said that there is a Forgotten Realm specific monsters in a new setting guide. I guess we'll just have to wait and see and then buy that separately. In that same vein, there were some creature type changes across the entire Monster Manual. Kobolds are now dragons, goblins are fae, gnolls and sahuagin are fiends, Koatoa and Gith are aberrations, myconids are plants, and Aarakocra and lizardfolk are elementals. Only 2 of the lizardfolk are elementals. On one hand, this is cosmetic. It's about inclusion and about making sure to differentiate between the humanoids that are creatures capable of morality and the extraplanar creatures. On inclusivity, there's also male hags and girl satyrs now. Neat. But also this is a huge balance change. Loads of spells specify that they only work against humanoids, which now won't work on these guys. A lot of ink has been spent on the balance changes in the player's handbook, but I think we're about to get a new wave of that kind of material from optimizers because it's insane how much these monsters shift the whole balance of the game. Again, I think it's too early to tell exactly how this will feel. One thing they talked about a lot is how annoying it used to be if you were a DM and you saw that an encounter called for a Barlgura, and you had to just know that a Barlgura was under D for demon. Even if you knew it was a fiend, you had to know it was D for demon and not D for devil. And in one of those marketing videos, they said, we didn't want to find ourselves in a situation where a new player would be looking for gelatinous cube and have to look under O for oozes, which is a fair complaint. So the goal was to make it simple. Just list the monsters alphabetically. That way, it's always in the same spot in the book as it is in the alphabet. Easy, right? The idea being that you're a new DM and you're reading an adventure and it says there's a gelatinous cube and you can go comfortably flipping to G for gelatinous cube. So, and this is clever, they renamed some stat blocks to make that easier. The acolyte is now a priest acolyte, so that it's under P for priest, right next to the priest and the archpriest. Wait, archpriest. Yeah, archpriest is under P for priest, just like the archmage is under M for mage and the archhag is under H for, it's under A for archhag. Anyway, they've renamed a bunch of monsters. For example, they wanted all the Modrons to be under M for Modron, even if it was technically a pentadrone. So now the pentadrone is called Modron Pentadrone. That way it's under M for Modron Pentadrone. Just like the methods. They're all called... The ice method is still called ice method and is under M for method, even if it starts with an I and should be I for ice. So if a stat block starts with a type, then it's grouped together. Just like the dragons used to be in the old books. All the methods are lumped together. And all the blights. So Twig Blight is under B for blight, and Dust Method is under M for method. And Archpriest is under P for priest, and all the dragons are under D for dragon. No, they separated the dragons, so all the red dragons are under R for red dragon, which obviously means they renamed the stat blocks to reflect that. So just like there's now a high CR Grick called Grick Ancient, there is now Red Dragon Ancient. No, wait, it's Ancient Red Dragon, starting with A, but it's filed under R for Red Dragon. Okay, so they won't rename those stat blocks, and we're supposed to remember that the color takes precedent over type. I get it. Like the Red Slod is filed under S for Red Slod. Wait, what? The Slodai are all under S for Slod, and the dragons are filed into colors. Both monster categories are divided entirely by color, but the rules apply to dragons, sort of, but not Slod. So let's play a game, shall we? Tell me what stat block is filed under what letter of the alphabet. Swarm of Sturges is under S for Sturges. At least there it's S no matter what. But the Swarm of Dretches is under D for Dretches. The Swarm of Larvae is under L for Larvae. The Swarm of Lemures under L for Lemures. But in the Animals Appendix, Swarm of Bats is under S for Swarm. Swarm of Insects is under S for Swarm. The Young Remorhaz is under R for Remorhaz. The Graveyard Revenant is under R for Revenant. The Vampire Umbral Lord is under V for Vampire, obviously. The Violet Fungus Necrohulk, it's F for Fungi. Not F for Fungus, F for Fungi. The Lacedon Ghoul is under G for Ghoul. The Horned Devil, under H for Horned, Bearded Devil under B for Bearded. Abrid Cultist, C for Cultist. Elemental Cultist, C for Cultist. Shadow Demon under S for Shadow. Dire Wolf is under D for Dire. Dire Warg is under W for Warg. And the Beholder Zombie, it's not B for Beholder, it's Z for Zombie. So it's not alphabetical. It's still categorized. They just broke up some of the big categories from the old Monster Manual, but not others. So all that talk about simplicity is just marketing bluster. The animals are all in the back, in an appendix, for example. A good decision for Druid players, I suppose. Like the Giant Eagle is under G for Giant Eagle and is in the Animals appendix since it's not an animal anymore, it's a celestial. Wait, what? Why is it in the Animals appendix? By the way, all the giant flying animals are no longer beasts, except the giant bat. So, Druids, if you want to be a big flying creature, you have to be a giant bat. I hope you like that flavor. The rest is off limits. Is that a purposeful nerf? I mean, the Giant Owl, Giant Eagle, and Giant Elk are all super flavorful outsiders now. I am way likelier to use them. But why are they in the Animals appendix? They're not beasts. What's an animal otherwise? Like, the warg isn't in there. Why is the Giant Owl? Seems like an oversight. That's a lot of oversight, isn't it? Actually, there's more. The pre-stat block doesn't have a listed spell save DC or a spell attack bonus. The Carrion Crawler has this paralysis ability with a repeating dex saving throw you cannot succeed since you automatically fail dex saves while paralyzed. They've already errated the Carrion Crawler, but not the Acolyte, and the list goes on. Maybe it's just me, but there's this persistent through line with this new book and a lot of the new edition that it just feels a little sloppy. It's odd because the art is gorgeous and the layout is fantastic and the design changes are broadly inspired. Really solid work from the whole team here. You can tell a lot of love went into this edition. I'm excited about running this new 5th edition, 2nd edition, and I think it's because the book team is doing excellent work. But how hamstrung were they? How rough was this process on the creators? It can't have been easy getting this thing done, what with the way the past few years have been for Wizards of the Coast. Folks I've gotten to know that work in the RPG printing industry tell me that the most dumbfounding words in the entire new set of core rulebooks appears right at the front. It says printed in the USA, something which I'm told is so expensive that you only do it when you're running out of time. These new books cost about $10 more than normal, and yeah, they're thicker, but they're also printed in the USA. And it's gotta make you wonder, how last minute was all of this? How huge was the pressure to deliver for the 50th for this 2024 Monster Manual to release as close to 2024 as they considerably, reasonably could, taking everything into account? Remember that teaser stat block for the Ancient Green Dragon they released at Gen Con last year? That stat block is completely different in the book. There were some huge changes in the interim, and that was only 7 months ago. How much did they change their designs in the next handful of months? Just moments before sending this thing off to layout, or moments before sending it out to print. How much stuff slipped through the cracks? And why were they chasing this deadline? My heart goes out to these creators. They started playtests in August 2022. Then the OGL followed by huge layoffs. You've got to wonder how many of these oversights were last-minute changes or last-minute notes. Or worst of all, they just didn't have time to get to a proper edit pass, to proofread and edit the work to a degree that the designers and the book team would have wanted to. I don't know, I don't work there, but I know a lot about what creative industries can be like, and all of this breaks my heart a little. And on the flip side, I wonder how much digital sales play into all of this. These books will be changed via errata as they already have. There will be notes, and they won't just release a PDF like they did in the old days, they'll just update D&D Beyond, like they've done with the shield. In print, there is no time for equipping a shield, but the language changed from wearing shields to wielding shields implied you could equip them as an object interaction, not as an action anymore. But on D&D Beyond, it now clearly states on the armor table that shields are equipped via the utilize action. The PHP has only been out for a few months, and my print copy is already not up to date with the newest rules. And the same is true for the Monster Manual. They just released an errata. This is all a bit of a hyperbole, but in all honesty, it's disappointing. Like, why should I buy the new books? They'll be plugged digitally moments later. And by extension, why bother with alphabetizing? It's all searchable on D&D Beyond. I don't know, it's just a little bit of sour mixed in with this otherwise joyous time of discovering a new edition of the game. So, should you get this book? Listen, I don't regret a single dime I spent on this. This book is awesome. It's just great. The art is fantastic. The stat blocks are better. The whole thing feels like a total improvement across the board. I've already used the new stat blocks and they're just better. If you're already running 2024 rules, then your players got a power boost a while back and you'll be happy to get some stronger monsters that you can kick your players around with. The new CR math works out better in my experience. I've yet to completely test it as much as I want, and I'm sure we won't know for another year or two, but this looks like a vast improvement. If you're currently finishing up a campaign with the 2014 rules and are looking to swap sometime after that, I think you shouldn't buy this book. At least not yet, because there's going to be a reprinting. I'm not saying that based on any insider knowledge or anything, but they always reprint after the first batch sells out, and when they do, they're going to plug a lot of holes in this. A lot of stuff is going to be errated in the next few weeks. I suggest you save yourself the heartache and buy the errated books, or buy it digitally wherever you play and get the patches. And if that's uncomfortable for you because you want to physically own the stuff you buy instead of buying a lifetime lease, which is what buying books online is, then here's the truth about this new edition. When they first marketed this new edition, why do you think they called it One D&D? Because they were changing Dungeons & Dragons from a release and forget game to a live service game. These books, I love them. I buy them all, but they're essentially collector's items. Unnecessary to play. That's always been the case with 5e, by the way. You can run the whole game off of the SRDs and collective knowledge. You don't need the books. And now, even if you want to buy the books, your most up-to-date material is in the live service web app, which honestly, I hate saying this because it's such a cynical take, but that's where I'm at. I love this new edition, I really do. I'm playing it, I watched it be born, I'm excited about all the changes. I'm honestly a sucker for it. Loads of people in the comments seem to think so. I really love this book and I'll keep buying these books. And I was ready to make this video just be me gushing for half an hour. But I don't know, there's been this persistent irk about the marketing surrounding it. Like they're coming out saying they finally fixed all the issues and there's just a new set of issues. And I feel like we're supposed to understand that it'll be plugged in a day one patch, like video games are, which is a little deflating. I've been so excited for this edition. I just like all the changes and I'm having more fun with the new rules than the old rules. I mostly wish I wasn't given so many excuses to be annoyed by something I'm so ready to fall in love with my entire heart. All that aside, I'm going to be running these new monsters and I'm going to use them from now on. I think anyone running D&D 2024 should be doing the same. And I honestly think anyone playing the 2014 game would have more fun with the 2024 game. And I'd probably buy this book based on that alone. And that's where we'll pick it up next time. Thanks so much for watching this video. This channel is run by me and my girlfriend. And if you want to support us in our efforts of running this channel, consider becoming a patron or a channel member. This month, on our Patreon, we are sharing our rules for a homebrew class that I created alongside my good friend Magnus. It's a martial class all about battlefield control and giving your party members additional attacks and reactions. It's called the Warlord. Check out our Mystic Adept tier if that seems interesting to you. If you're feeling especially generous, you might like the video, comment, share, subscribe, and hit the bell to be notified when we release new videos. Until next time, keep studying the mystic arts.